Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to sift through stacks of information and pull out those really key nuggets of knowledge for you.
That's right.
Today, we're diving into something pretty useful. Persuasive comparison. We're drawing from a guide called Debating Choices, a guide to persuasive comparison. And it's fascinating because it argues it's less about what side you pick and much more about how you actually argue your case to win someone over.
Yeah, it's a really structured approach this guide offers. Very practical, especially for those times you need to be persuasive, logical, and, well, quick about it.
Right.
So we're going to unpack the specific language tricks, the rhetorical tools that actually make an argument stick even when the clock's ticking. Our goal today really is to give you that practical toolkit.
Okay, let's get into it then.
Yeah.
So the source material, it lays out this two-part process, calls it task A and B.
Yep, a strategy, really.
Exactly. Think of it like phase one, strategy and prep. Phase two, the persuasive pitch. So part A, that's the preparation phase. And you get a full 60 seconds for this, but here's the catch. It's completely silent. No speaking.
Right. You're given two options, often visual things, like pictures of two different office spaces, maybe?
Yeah, or project ideas, something like that. And your job, silently, is to compare them, weigh them up, and choose the one you feel most solid defending.
And you use that minute wisely. Reading descriptions, jotting down notes, maybe adding details you can use later, building your ammo.
Crucially, you know that in the next part B, you're going head-to-head with someone else, like your boss or a family member, whoever, to pick the other option.
So it's set up explicitly as a debate, you versus them, your points against their points.
The guide even gives an example, like choosing a new office, and then you got to convince your boss yours is better. Oh, and if you can't decide in that 60 seconds...
The computer picks for you, which adds a bit of pressure, doesn't it?
It does. But what's really key about that silent minute, what the guide emphasizes,
is just how much thinking happens. It's not just, I like this one better. It's, okay, what are they going to say about their choice? What are the weaknesses in my choice they might attack?
You're pre-gaming the argument.
Exactly. Pre-computation, anticipating the counter moves. That's what makes for strong persuasion, thinking ahead like that.
Okay, so you've done your silent prep. Then comes part B, the persuasion phase. Now you do speak.
And you get exactly 60 seconds again. Clock's ticking.
Right. And now you're facing the other person's choice, maybe your boss's preferred office space. Your goal, persuade them your pick is the better fit. How? By directly comparing the two.
It's a tight time frame. 60 seconds isn't long to make a complex case.
No, it's not. Which is why the guide gets really specific about the language you need. It highlights two critical types. Okay. First one, comparative forms of adjectives. The basic grammar stuff, but used strategically.
Like better, faster, bigger.
Exactly. For short words, usually add "er." So soft becomes softer, big becomes bigger.
And for longer words,
you stick more or less in front. Like comfortable becomes more comfortable or less comfortable. Interesting becomes less interesting.
Okay, so using comparatives, why is that so important here?
Well, the guide says it's about clarity. It forces you to pinpoint the differences and similarities. It makes the comparison explicit, undeniable.
Right. It allows for really precise points. You're not just describing your option. You're showing why it's superior or maybe less problematic than the other one directly, logically.
Takes the ambiguity out. It's fundamental for a logical argument, especially under pressure.
Makes sense. What's the second type of language?
Persuasive forms. And this pulls from, classic rhetoric, Aristotle, logic, emotion, character.
Ethos, pathos, logos.
Kind of. But the guide says for this specific task, with a tight time limit, you lean almost entirely on logic, using the facts you were given, maybe from under the pictures of the offices.
Interesting. So focus on the logic, the facts. How do you make that persuasive?
It highlights three key techniques for this logic-based persuasion. First, be empathetic.
Okay, how so?
Start by acknowledging their side. Show you actually heard them, you see the appeal of their choice, even if you're about to argue against it.
Softens the ground a bit. Disarming.
Yeah. The guide suggests starting lines like, that is a good-looking office space you have chosen. Something like that.
Okay. Empathy first. What's next?
Second, ask one rhetorical question, just one. The guide is really specific about this.
Why only one?
I guess to keep it focused, sharp. It's not a real question needing an answer. It's designed to nudge them towards your conclusion.
Makes them think along your lines.
Exactly. Like, do you want your employees to work under fluorescent lighting? Or maybe as a tag question. You don't want them under fluorescent lighting, do you? plants that seed.
That single question is powerful. It pulls them into your argument mentally without using up too much of your precious 60 seconds. Very efficient.
Right. And the third technique is emphasize your point using those comparative forms.
Bringing it back to the first tool.
Yes. This is where you directly deploy words like more modern, less convenient, closer, brighter, to hammer home the advantages of your choice compared to theirs, using the facts.
Got it. Empathy. One rhetorical question, then drive home the differences with comparatives and facts.
Exactly. So putting it all together.
Yeah.
How do you actually do this in that 60-second window? The guide gives a very clear 5-step procedure for Part B.
A structured approach, which, as we said, is probably essential when you're on the clock like that. And make sure you hit all the key points logically, like a checklist for your argument.
Totally. Okay, here's the breakdown. Step 1, open with empathy and a turn.
The acknowledgement first.
Right. Acknowledge their choice, see its merits, then pivot to yours. So talking to the boss. That is a good-looking office space you have chosen, boss. Pause. But I have another one for you to consider.
Sets a nice tone. Collaborative, not just argumentative.
Step 2. Introduce your first comparative and the one rhetorical question. Hit them with an early advantage of your choice, then pop the question. Using the office example again, my choice of office space is a little bit more modern than yours. There's the comparative. Look at all the natural light we will have. Detail. Then the question. Do you want your employees to work under fluorescent lighting?
Bam. Quick, efficient. Establishes an advantage, then uses the question to highlight a potential negative in their choice. Clever.
Then, step 3. Detail differences with comparatives. No more questions. This is where you lay out the rest of your case. List the differences, using comparative language as specific details. But the guide is firm. No more questions now.
Just the facts and comparisons.
Yep. The guide has this great example chunk. Our buildings also have the same number of square feet at 12,000, so they are similar in this aspect, acknowledging similarity. However, although the rent is a little more expensive with my choice, addressing a negative head-on, there are 2 ways for the employees to get to work, by bus or train, whereas your office space only allows for taking a bus. The employees will appreciate these options.
That's really good. Specific details, direct comparisons more expensive, 2 ways versus only allows. It builds a really solid fact-based case. And you can see how that whole example, hitting all the steps, could fit in about 50 seconds. It's dense but clear.
Exactly. Packing it in. Then, step 4, add a concluding sentence. You need to wrap it up sternly.
Seal the deal.
Yeah. Something direct like, so I think it should be clear which choice is better now. Leaves no ambiguity about your stance.
Confident closing.
And finally, step 5. Use signal words, little navigational aids for the listener.
Like first, also, finally.
Exactly. For those, helps them follow your logical structure, especially when you're talking fast. First, it's more modern. Also, the transport links are better. Finally, consider the lighting.
Makes the flow really clear.
And the guide really drives home this point. It is not about what side you argue, as there is no right or wrong choice. It is more about how, the form you argue, that gets you the highest score.
That's the core insight, isn't it? It's technique over mere opinion. The skill lies in the construction and delivery of the argument itself.
Which means you can apply this anywhere.
Absolutely. It's not just for hypothetical office choices. It's for making a case for a project at work, maybe discussing holiday plans with your family, even arguing about which movie to watch.
Yeah.
It's about mastering the craft of presenting a logical, compelling comparison.
So there you have it. We've seen how this structured approach from debating choices, using those precise comparative words and those focused persuasive techniques like empathy and that one rhetorical question
can really sharpen your arguments.
Yeah, it gives you a genuine shortcut to making your points more convincing, especially when time is tight.
And whether you're, formally presenting at work or just hashing things out over coffee, understanding how arguments work, using that empathy, backing it with logic, making clear comparisons, it's just incredibly valuable.
It really is.
So we'd encourage you, maybe start noticing these patterns now. Listen to the news, look at ads, even just in your own conversations. How are people trying to persuade using comparison? What techniques, like the ones we discussed, do you see being used around you? And maybe think about how you could use them yourself next time you need to make your case.